everyone knows about the seals at axle seals. If you're watching a race on television and NASCAR is running, 100% of the field has got one of these in their car. This is a high quality product produced by Seals It. It's used on the axle, packed with grease, low temperature, low melt grease, in order to make sure that we don't have burnout on the seal. And it's fabricated in a way so that it can fit a variety of different sizes. They even come with an insert so that you can punch your own size. And there are replacement products as well for the O-rings and or the center seal. So you have a lot more longevity to the piece for that reason.
Yes, you do. Perfect.
Can you explain the different manufacturers of this product?
The colors indicate the size and the different wall thicknesses. We know if you're using a silver axle seal, you've probably got an 1/8 inch wall. That means it's O2 thin. It may be illegal, but that's your choice. As Carrie pointed out, many of the teams use different size axles. We can tailor fit the size of the seal for your axle, and the low temperature melt aids in the break-in of the seal. Now, how did this all come about? If you notice, this has an extreme amount of activity. It can move around, take up to 1/8 of an inch of movement. In fact, this actual seal is used on boats, on the log, for setting speed records. In other words, the shaft that goes to the log, hooked to the propeller, is turning, what, 6,000 to 8,000 RPM? It can survive that. Sometimes we use that same seal in a torque tube. Imagine if you're going 8,000 RPMs and you've got grease coming out. I don't think there's a driver around that wants oil on his shoes, and especially if it's hot oil, John. Have you ever had that?
Absolutely, and the other beauty of this product is nowadays we're worried about lowest level of lubricants possible to create less drag. We're using synthetics, fine oils, so that seal not only can allow for a lower volume of oil being used in the rear end because it keeps it all back in the section.
Now, what drove this? How did we have to make this seal? Because original seals actually did a pretty good job. It was when the rear ends were cambered to fit the track. In other words, we've put an angle on the drive plate to match the angle of the banking. If you take a look at this hub, and you can see the extreme amount of offset as I'm turning it, this is put into the end of the axle, and it creates an extreme angle for the tire to be on the ground. Well, now, when that happens, the axle is no longer going through the center line of the tube. If it's not in the center line of the tube, it's offset. We have to have some mechanism to hold that so it doesn't leak. Now, that leads to the next product. This is a drive plate seal. The drive plate seal is fastened on the hub. The axle is inserted. However, because it's at an angle and it's going around, there's a movement of the axle inside of that spline. Creates a lot of heat. How do they keep that heat from building up and burning the axle? Well, the answer is they use a product called Krytox. Krytox is a wonderful lubricant, but when mixed with wheel bearing grease or rear end grease, catastrophe. So Seals It developed a what, John? You forgot too.
But
that's
drive plate seal.
A drive plate seal. The drive plate seal is inserted into this cap using a tool that Seals It distributes with its product. Pushed in place, it snaps in and keeps a perfect seal between the end of the hub and the axle. The splines are now covered with Krytox grease, but that Krytox can't get out. This year, when the year began, we had one design of drive plate seal. Today we have 8 different iterations of drive plate seals. In other words, there's been a lot of changes. A lot of teams are sailing their own ship. We at Seals It are capable of making a change. We have software in place with engineering that your engineering can contact with our engineering. We can send blueprints back and forth over the internet. These blueprints can be altered, changed, and put into our machines and produced. And honestly, this has been a very exciting year with all of the drive plate seals that have been manufactured. But we have a number of things that seal up axles, and I think, John, if you'd explain some of the Dana 60 and the Dana 40 and the Jeep seals, and boy, we're getting a lot of stuff with that, aren't we?
And a few things to add to Skip's explanation of this. It also shows where we can take and work with your engineers and our engineers and design a custom tailored part to fit your specific needs. And another small thing with the axle seals, we had originally done the seal that we had the lip on, it would go in and center itself at the bottom of the center section. Teams wanted to place the seal further into the axle housing. We machined the lip off. This allows them to slide the axle and put it in place. Small tech tip on that line. Then as things evolved, NASCAR nickel plated the housings and some of the teams rough that up so the silicone can stick. You know, we're just really flexible and can work with the teams in this way.
That's right, but there's also, it isn't just big teams that buy seals at products. We have a seal, if I might have that Econo seal, John, sure. This is an economy axle seal, and I'll have to say, the late Jim Smith was instrumental in designing this. We had a couple of fellows copying our pieces, and it was a difficult situation because they weren't doing a good job. The seals were leaking, they looked somewhat like ours, and we were getting a bad name. Jim said, let's make a piece, and we're gonna make this the best axle seal for the money. So this axle seal was designed, it has the same seal as the very expensive piece, but only one seal. So the point is, if you're running a 200 lap race on a 2-mile speedway at 200 miles an hour, this is absolutely, by far, the best axle seal you can buy. But if you're on a 1/3 mile or a 1/4 mile for 20 laps for $200 to win, this axle seal fit perfect. Now, you guys that are distributing this is a real bonus. See the barbs in the flanges on here? It's a one-size-fits-all. You don't have to have a lot of inventory. This piece will push into place, the seals will fold, it'll take up whatever speed. We do tell you put a little sealant, or rather RTV. RTV, by the way, stands for room temperature vulcanized. Not many people know that. So the RTV is on the lips, it pushes into place, it seals perfectly. And 200 miles an hour, you need that guy. 20 laps on a 1/4 mile for $200 to win, this is the best product you can buy.
Absolutely. And fellas, for those of you that have a family, or those of you that just like to shoot darts and drink beer, bottom line is no more cleaning your brakes off and getting rid of all that axle oil lube being scattered every Saturday night when you run that 20 lap race. This will keep the oil in the rear end. Again, lower level of lubrication, less drag. Now you might be able to have dinner with the wife and kids instead of out there cleaning your brake drums up.
Win-win.
Win-win.